Today is the start of the 6th week since My Hero Ultra Rumble has launched, and with the start of the week, we need to make some adjustments to this tier list. Now, this tier list is going to be fluid, it's going to be constantly changing because as we get more into the game and we get more bug fixes and patches and things like that, of course, characters are going to move around on the tier list. It'll probably never be something that can be perfected, but we're going to try our best to put these characters where they belong and where they deserve to be. So the very first character, with that said, that I am going to be moving, and I feel like a lot of people have wanted me to move this character for a while because it just makes the character too confusing to have them where I have them, is going to be Toga. Toga is not S tier, but she's S tier at the same time, okay? This is one of the most complicated characters to explain to people. When she transforms, which is like half of her kit, her special ability lets her transform, her gamma ability lets her transform, right? And then when she transforms into one of these, S tier characters, being Sue, Bakugo, Todoroki, or Deku, she is then one of the best characters in game. But when it comes to her base kit, if we're just rating her base kit and how good she is, her maneuverability, her damage, and how good she is like with her own alpha skill of throwing knives and stuff like that, that definitely is not S tier. She's not as good as these other characters. Sue is super hard to hit when she jumps around. Bakugo has insane repositioning and damage. Same with Todoroki and Deku. So while I think Toga is really good if she transforms into the right characters, she can also be really bad if she transforms into the wrong characters like Kendo or these other characters who are down here on the lower levels of the tier list. Additionally, like I said, her base kit is not the greatest. So just placing her on her base kit alone, I'm going to move her down to A tier, but keep in mind she can move up to S tier depending on who she transforms into. She could also move down to C tier depending on who she transforms into. Now, as for where I'm going to place Toga into A tier, I'm actually going to put her probably right below Cementoss, I would say. I think Cementoss has insane maneuverability. All these characters above Toga have insane maneuverability that is actually really decent. All Might has his jump. Ida, of course, can run up and down walls. Compress has his escape. Cementoss is his ability to create pillars for himself and avoid damage is insanely annoying if you've ever played against a good Cementoss. And then we have Toga, who I would say has better maneuverability than like Kaminari, Shigaraki, Kirishima, and Yayorozu, who are below him. And the biggest problem, below her, sorry, and the biggest problem with Toga though, is the fact that her gamma skill, the one that lets her run around with her knives, is actually kind of hard to control. Not gamma skill, beta skill. Her beta skill, the one that lets you run around with your knives, is actually kind of hard to control and aim directionally, but it does last a really long time. So the fact that it lasts a long time, I would say gives her actually better movement than these characters below her with the duration of her ability to move around. She also has pretty good damage on her alpha skill. However, you do have to be able to aim to use her alpha skill. It's not just one-shot damage. It's kind of like a burst rifle, I guess, if you want to call it. I don't know. Auto rifle, you have to hold it down and actually aim correctly. Whereas other characters that are above Toga, like Deku, Todoroki, and Bakugo, they do one shot that does like 75 damage, whereas she does one shot that does like 25 damage. I don't know the exact numbers, I'd have to go look it up, but it's somewhere around there. So like her alpha skill's good, but you have to be able to aim. So for that reason, all those reasons, we're moving Toga down to A tier just based on her base kit. I'll say it one more time though, she could be S tier, she transforms into the right person. She could be lower, she transforms into the wrong person, right? And so looking at the rest of these characters, I'm still happy with where Sue is, where Bakugo is, where Todoroki is, and where Deku is. They are in the right order. Sue is still the most broken character in the game right now. She's hard to counter, she has a small hitbox, and I'm not sure what to do to nerf her. I've seen a lot of comments with ideas of how to nerf her, and honestly, it's a hard character to nerf because I don't think she's too overpowered. I think she's just really annoying to deal with because of just how her kit is designed, right? So I feel like almost to counter Sue, you need another character added into the game that counters that type of character. But I don't know. Let me know your guys' thoughts on that down in the comments. Bakugo, I feel, is balanced. Same with Todoroki and Deku. Actually, all three of these characters, they're very similar, and I would say they're all fairly balanced at this point. The damage reductions have been very nice. Now, the thing that makes people feel like these characters are really too overpowered still is when they're all picked on a team together. They just sit there and they snipe you, and it's really, really annoying. But individually, I would say these characters are balanced now, but they are still a cut above all the other characters in A tier, B tier, and C tier. So I would say they're okay where they're at for right now. Then we have All Might. All Might, I don't know if I actually want him in the top spot. Now, for A tier, we did recently get the character rankings by win percentage, right? And All Might was at the top. He had the highest win percentage. And then Mount Lady was like second or third. I think she was second, right? And I would have to go back and look at the Twitter page. But these characters were really, really high in win percentage. And people are like, well, that means that your tier lists are all wrong. They're terrible. All Might should be at the top of S tier, right? Above Sue. No. Oh, no. Because you have to take into account, they are not calculating pick rate into win percentage, right? All Might is definitely picked significantly less than people who play Sue or Bakugo. So let's say we have a lobby of 8 teams. Every one of those teams probably has a Bakugo on it. That means 7 Bakugos are losing, dragging the win rate down, even though 1 wins. Whereas every team is not going to have an All Might because he's at the end of the special pass and less people are playing him. Therefore, his win percentage is going to be higher. So hopefully that makes sense. So don't let those win percentages confuse you about which characters are the best in the game. Yes, they have the highest win percentage, but that doesn't mean they're the best character in the game, okay? With that said, All Might, still a very good character, really good at mid-range. He just gets outranged by these characters up above him and chased down really hard by like characters like Sue. So I am going to keep him towards the top of A tier. I feel like I almost should put Ida above All Might, just because. No, actually, we're gonna keep All Might there. I was about to say just because he's actually better with his maneuverability. Ida's movement is better than All Might's, okay? But All Might has something else going on for him besides just his movement. He has the ability to reflect projectiles when he's in his tornado. So that makes All Might actually, he has good mobility and the ability to reflect projectiles and the ability to do damage. That makes him really, really good, right? So we're gonna keep him towards the top of A tier. Then we're gonna keep Ida and we're gonna keep Compress. I actually really do like this order that we have for the characters, and I feel like this is the order that they go in for how good they are in A tier. I have actually almost no problems with the way this is set up right now. I think Kirishima, honestly, if I'm looking at it, his win percentage, he was number 5 on the win percentage. Once again, I feel like he's a character that didn't get picked as much. I feel like more people are going to be picking him now, maybe dragging his win percentage down. Hard to say, but having played him more and more, I do think Kirishima is actually really good. He has better movement now since his buffs, and I think I'm going to put him above Kaminari now. I think he's better than Kaminari and Shigaraki when it comes to movement, when it comes to damage, when it comes to AoE damage, and when it comes to defense, his defense is the biggest thing that makes him really, really good. His Unbreakable is insanely good. Now, his AoE is also really good, but it's a little bit smaller hitbox than like Shigaraki's AoE, but here's the difference. Kirishima's AoE is instantaneous, and it does a massive amount of damage really quickly. Shigaraki's AoE is broken endgame, but early game it's hard to use, and it's not instant gratification like it is with Kirishima's. So I feel comfortable putting Kirishima above Kaminari for movement's sake, because I think his movement is a little bit better, and above Shigaraki for damage sake, because his damage is instantaneous. So I feel like it's fair to move Kirishima up higher in A tier. Kirishima has had a massive glow up, in my opinion, on my tier list at least, since he got these buffs, and I think he is much better than he was initially at the launch of the game. I am still comfortable with keeping these two where they are and keeping Yayorozu below. The reason I'm keeping Yayorozu below is even though she has great utility, she has her AoE with her alpha skill, she has her shield that basically makes her invulnerable, right? And then she has her gamma skill, her cannon, which can snipe people across the map. I think her maneuverability just is not that great. Her cannon is hard to aim. It's an insane AoE, but I feel like the AoE, when you're comparing AoEs, right? These 3 characters above Yayorozu, Shigaraki's is easier to use, Kaminari's is easier to use, and Kirishima's is easier to use. And they're all about equally as gratifying as Yayorozu's. And so that's why I have Yayorozu here below those 3 characters. But realistically, if I were to give you guys an honest opinion, I think these 3 characters, Kaminari, Shigaraki, Yayorozu, are all kind of on par, even though they have very different kits, right? So, but in fairness' sake, I have to put Yayorozu at the bottom of A tier. Dobby is a character that a lot of people have debated and argued about for forever, since the game launched, right? And they have said Dobby should be S tier, Dobby should be D tier, Dobby should be B tier. It's everywhere. Everyone, literally, this might be one of the most controversial characters when it comes to a tier list. A good Dobby can definitely be high A tier, S tier, like really good. The problem is he lacks movement. His projectiles are faster now that they buffed him, but still not quite as fast as you want them to be. He has good tracking with the projectiles on his alpha skill, which is really helpful and really good. Makes him one of the easier characters to use when it comes to getting easy damage. But then the rest of his kit is hard to use because it's hard to use his ability where he puts the ring of fire around him, and it's hard to set his traps to actually make them useful and effective, right? And especially when you're being chased down, Dobby is one of the characters I would argue that can be chased down the easiest. And because he can be chased down the easiest, that's why he's actually down here in B tier instead of up in A tier. I don't think his damage is bad. I think blocking projectiles is really, really good. And I think his alpha skill is a lot better now that they buffed it. But I feel like he still just doesn't have any real escape. And if you run out of alpha moves, you're kind of at a loss for attack moves, right? So if you've used up all your alphas, then all you have is a ring of fire you put around you or traps to defend yourself. And if people know how to work around your ring of fire, just wait for it to run out, or avoid your traps, you're sitting there without an alpha skill for a good amount of time. So if they wanted to buff Dobby to make him a little bit better, they need to make his, like, once you've used up all your alpha skills, make that regenerate a little bit quicker. And I think that would put Dobby back up to A tier or S tier, you know, kind of where he belongs. But for now, just because I feel like when you run out of your alpha skill and you only have the beta and gamma to rely on, he's kind of a sitting duck. That's why we have him in B tier. He is at the top of B tier though, so keep that in mind. Then we have Ibra below Dobby. Ibra is another character that we've had a lot of debate on. Not quite as much as Dobby. I feel like people kind of want her lower just because she is another one of those characters that can be a sitting duck and kind of stands out. However, I feel like she has better defensive capabilities than Dobby at points, where she can do her wide-ranging AoE to protect herself. She can grab people and trap them and literally do true damage to them. Ignores the guard points or the shield, and that's insanely good. But her biggest problem comes when she relies on a team to be able to actually grab people. She needs her team to protect her. Otherwise, the enemy team will just save their teammate by coming around Ibra and attacking her from the back or the side or stuff like that. So the fact that Ibra needs a team to actually be useful makes her a harder character to use, and for that reason we're going to keep her in B tier. Isawa is one of those characters I feel like he could easily be A or S tier, but here's the problem. His damage is really terrible, his alpha is super glitchy, his beta tracking is super terrible, and his gamma is the only real skill that effectively consistently does damage. Okay, so for all of those reasons, just his release was botched, terrible, in my opinion, not very good. We're going to put him in B tier, and actually, you know what? He's going even below Uraraka now. I've tested him out enough, way too much. I played him a lot, guys, and I don't like it. There's an argument to put him below. Actually, you know what? He's going down. He's going down until they fix. Like, Uraraka's only glitch is her alpha, right? Isawa, his whole kit feels terrible to play. So realistically, based on his kit, if everything worked correctly, this is an A tier, S tier character potentially. I would say more of a low A tier character. But because everything is so freaking bugged, yeah, I'm putting him below Kendo. It hurts me because he's a fun character to play. He feels like one of those characters like, oh, he has a high skill ceiling. I want to play this character and get good at him. But no matter how high his skill ceiling is, when the alpha glitches and just knocks opponents down and makes them invulnerable without grabbing them, super annoying. When you use your beta and makes them invulnerable without landing a single one of the kicks, super annoying, right? And there's so many more like problems that go on. When it comes to a special action, you look at somebody, you're looking at them for 3 seconds and it still doesn't kick in. Like, hello? I don't know. He has to go down here until they fix him. You know, argue with me if you want, put it in the comments, but he has to go there. He has to. All right, Mountain Lady. This was a controversial move to a lot of people when I moved her down. I don't think she's the best character in the game. I don't think she is up here with the other S tier characters. I used to have her up in S tier. I used to think she was very good, but the more we get into the game, the more I play these characters and the more I try them, the more I realize that Mountain Lady is actually solid in her base form, but when she transforms and uses her special skill, It just makes her a giant billboard for any team that knows what they're doing in higher ranks. They're going to absolutely obliterate her. And now with the introduction of Isawa, when his special action actually works, he can erase her quirks, and she's literally standing there as a giant billboard. Now, I might have been a bit hasty moving her all the way down to where I did, because I based that around the fact that Isawa is now in the game as a hard counter to her. And so because I feel like Isawa has not been as impactful as he could have been because of all the bugs that are going on with him, I am going to move Mount Lady back up a little bit because she does not deserve to be below Ibra and below Dobby. Now, in terms of how good is she, I would say she's probably, I would say she's actually not as good as the other characters above her, honestly. I'm going to put her at the top of B tier. And the reason, I'll explain why I'm doing this. Her alpha skill is a mid-range attack that has decent damage, but it's not an AoE sweeping attack like Yayorozu, who is going to be better than her. Her stomp ability is spammable up to 3 hits, and it can do decent damage, but that's only half a health bar, whereas like Shigaraki's will take out a whole health bar. Kirishima's will do even more, like it's 3/4 of a health bar with his AoE. So all of these characters, Kaminari's AoE will take them all the way down. All of these characters' AoE above Mount Lady is technically better and does more damage, right? And now the one place where Mount Lady could potentially argue better is she has decent movement with her kick that makes her like slightly better than Shigaraki, because Shigaraki can do his dash, but she can go over walls and stuff with her kick. Same with Yayorozu. However, Kirishima and Kaminari can do the same thing as Mount Lady, so I feel like I'm comfortable with putting her at the top of B tier for now. Once again, because these characters above her just do better, and additionally because Isawa is here supposedly as a counter, and any team that, now that we've gotten further into the game, that knows what they're doing is going to focus a large Mount Lady down quickly, making her special skill harder to use. Now, if you're in the final circle, she can be the MVP, but you have to make it to that final circle first, and this tier list is based on the overall gameplay of the character and the kits, right? So we can't just take the final circle into account. For the last 2 characters, we have Uraraka and Kendo. Uraraka is going to stay here. She's going to stay here until that alpha skill is fixed. And once the alpha skill's fixed and she has a full usable kit, she'll move up. She'll move up probably towards the top of A tier, maybe even S tier, depending on how good the fix is. But yeah, once that's fixed, she's moving up. She's like up here-ish in this range, or maybe up here. She's really, really good if she works correctly. And then Kendo is a character I feel like she still, I don't know. It's so hard to place Kendo. Her damage is really, really good with the shotgun blast, but it's such a small range on her alpha skill, and it's inconsistent. It doesn't always do the same amount of damage. I hate that. I don't like that. Like, go into practice range, or the practice, use her alpha from different distances, just even stay in the same distance and use her alpha. Don't move your cursor at all, and you'll see the damage changes. It's like, what? Why is the damage changing? But her shield is really, really good, like insanely good, and her clap is insanely good too because it shield breaks and stuff. I just don't like how inconsistent her alpha skill is, and I also don't think she has quite the amount of movement that you'd want to see from this character to put her on par with the characters above her. I feel like she needs a little bit more movement. I'm not sure how they would do that. I mean, they have given her an extra charge on her hands, which makes her a little bit better, but overall, I'm just not super crazy about Kendo. And then last but not least for her, when I'm explaining her, her special action, the ability to pick up allies and throw them, while it's kind of cool and fun to use for engages, like it's fun to pick up a Kirishima and throw him, I don't feel like it's the most practical skill. Now, if you could pick up like downed teammates and then set them down like you do with Deku or All Might and they revive, that's a massive buff for Kendo. Kendo needs something like that. That would be amazing. And I think that would definitely move her up to B, maybe A tier. But for now, we're going to leave her in C tier until she gets some sort of buff that makes her a little bit more practical to use in the game. Also, we're going to keep her in C tier, and just in terms of ranked, because ranked is based on damage right now. And so the characters that don't do damage are Kendo and Isawa, essentially. And so it's really hard to play these 2 particular characters in ranked correctly and get a high ranked score. So that's why we're going to keep them in C tier. And that is it for the adjustments for week 6, guys. Let me know if you agree or disagree with where we place these characters in the tier. Eventually, we will be placing Endeavor when he comes out. So make sure you guys are subscribing to the channel, hitting that like button on this video, and thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.
Maybach.